Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 177 based on novel. So let's start. This token was completely purple and there was a trace of golden lighting within it. It looked like a piece of purple gold. When touching it, one could feel that it was neither wood nor gold texture. The universe was simply too big for someone to recognize every single material. Wang Lin didn't focus too much on what the token was made of and carefully looked at its appearance. There were some broken runes on the surface of the token. After a moment of hesitation, Wang Lin scanned it with his divine sense and revealed a strange expression. Storage. There was a unique space inside the token. Although the space inside was filled with purple mist, it was indeed a storage device. There was only one thing inside, and that was a sword. It wasn't a celestial sword, but one of the swords from the 12 swords. After thinking about it, Wang Lin deduced that this sword came from the last Da Lu sword disciple trapped inside the mist. For some reason, when that disciple was sacrificed to the token, the sword was absorbed by the token. With a thought, the sword flew out and stabbed into the ground beside Wang Lin. After carefully searching the space inside the token, Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense. He looked at the token and began to ponder. Aside from the material of this token, there is nothing surprising about it. If I hadn't seen it form from the mist directly, it would be difficult to imagine that this thing is something people like the All-Seer, Ling Qianhu, and the Blood Ancestor want to steal. This token is the key to opening the cave. Only with the 4 fake caves open can the final door be opened. According to Yao Shishue, the All-Seer and company don't know that a 4th fake cave exists. But the Blood Ancestor knows this. Chen Long and Greed know that I obtained the token. However, Chen Long didn't see everything. If I were him, I would think that Greed would have taken the token in the end. After taking a deep breath, Wang Lin withdrew his gaze. Looking out of the crack at the pitch-black darkness outside, he revealed a bitter expression. Even if I got the token, what's the use when I'm trapped here and can't get out? There is no need to try to teleport when even people as cunning as Greed didn't teleport once. I just don't know if I can enter the cave from here. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed as he touched his bag of holding and a crystal appeared in his hand. After a long time, Wang Lin let out a sigh and bitterly smiled. I'm unable to activate it. He pondered a bit and looked around. This crack wasn't big, only few dozen feet wide. He was able to clearly see everything with one look. Shortly after, he stood up and arrived at the entrance of the crack. The suction force outside never stopped. After moving a little bit more forward, he could clearly feel it, and even his body showed signs of being sucked in. Wang Lin backed up. His eyes flickered. I wonder how the mosquito beast is doing right now. Also, what is the result of the battle between Senior Ju Yi and Greed? However, even if Ju Yi won, he still won't know where I am. After all, even his sword divine sense can't reach here. He looked up at the wall and his body moved as he attempted to use the earth escape spell. However, as soon as his body touched the wall, he was stopped. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin landed on the ground and slapped his bag of holding. He took out the soul flag, took out a soul, threw it at the wall, and carefully observed. That soul floated into the wall like a strand of smoke, but Wang Lin immediately felt a miserable scream from the soul. It was as if the soul that went inside was torn into pieces and was immediately sucked toward the bottom by the strong suction force. Danger spot! The bitterness in Wang Lin's eyes became even stronger. He let out a sigh and sat down on the ground in the lotus position with a gloomy expression. Shortly after, he touched his bag of holding and 3 swords, a severed arm, and a skull immediately flew out. The 3 swords were from the 12 swords, and adding the one inside the token, they were the snake, horse, chicken, and dog. Wang Lin currently had 7 of the 12 swords. The 3 sword formation also flew out from Wang Lin's bag and fell beside him. Wang Lin waved his right hand and the 7 swords immediately flew around him. He opened his mouth to spit out some origin energy. The origin energy wrapped around the 7 swords. There was an extra strand of thunder inside his origin energy. After it touched the swords, lightning moved throughout the swords. The 7 swords were also connected by lightning, forming a mysterious sword formation. 7 swords can form the 7-star sword formation. Also, with my thunder linking them, the power of the sword formation will increase by 30%. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze. With his origin energy refining the swords, he no longer had to pay any attention to them. He then turned around and looked at the severed arm and head. The origin soul of the owner and also Ling Qianho's sword energy were sealed inside them. Wang Lin was very experienced in refining souls and extracting the sword energy. 2 mouthfuls of origin energy allowed Wang Lin to extract Ling Qianho's sword energy and devour it. Normally, after devouring Ling Qianho's sword energy, his origin soul would feel waves of pain and would only stop after he recovered for a bit. However, right now, after devouring 2 sword energies in a row, not only did his origin soul not feel any discomfort, it actually felt very comfortable. After checking his origin soul and finding nothing wrong, Wang Lin wryly smiled to himself. Can this still be considered an origin soul? He once again touched his bag of holding and took out a sphere of restrictions. The small sphere grew after it came out, and by the time it landed, it was 5 feet tall already. There were countless restrictions flashing on the sphere. Wang Lin's right hand formed a seal and then pointed at the sphere. A restriction sphere began to split down the middle as if a flower was blooming, revealing a handsome man inside. This person was the Red Division's Dujun. His eyes were closed and his face was pale. After the restrictions were lifted, he opened his eyes and stared at Wang Lin. It took a long time before his empty eyes slowly regained their color. However, after checking himself, he immediately found that his origin soul had been sealed. Right now he had basically become immortal. Wang Lin's voice was calm as he slowly said, "Senior brother Du, you can tell me Master's secret now." Du Jian revealed a bitter expression. He looked at Wang Lin with a complex expression. After silently pondering for a bit, he said, "Even if I talked, I'm afraid it would be difficult to avoid death." Wang Lin's gaze swept Du Jian. A hint of lightning appeared in Wang Lin's eyes and penetrated Du Jian's eyes. This caused Du Jian's mind to become shocked. He pointed at Wang Lin and exclaimed, Your eyes?" Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and calmly said, "Senior brother Du, my patience has a limit." It was as if Du Jian hadn't heard Wang Lin at all, and his eyes were filled with aghast. He still hadn't recovered from Wang Lin's gaze. Du Jian had encountered a lot of cultivators and even seen a lot of powerful cultivators. He had seen cultivators whose eyes had lightning within them. However, all of that lightning was created by spells. Although it was still lightning, it couldn't compare to the heavens' lightning. However, at that moment, the lightning from Wang Lin's eyes made him felt like he was standing below the vast sky and looking up at a thunderbolt. It was the feeling of not knowing what to do when dealing with the might of the heavens. Wang Lin frowned. He no longer wanted to deal with this nonsense, so he grabbed Du Jian and dragged him toward the opening of the crack. Near the opening, Du Jian became aware of the huge suction force. Even with his cultivation, he felt like his origin soul was about to be pulled out of his body. He began to exclaim due to the terror. "Speak!" Wang Lin's sentence was simple, there was only one word. Du Jian's expression became even paler, and the shadow of death enveloped his body. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he grabbed Du Jian and pulled him toward the opening of the crack once more. Du Jian suddenly felt the suction from outside by increased 10 times. At this moment, his origin soul was pulled out from his body and left his body. No matter how hard his origin soul struggled, it was still being slowly pulled out of his body. Du Jian's trembling body shouted, "I'll speak! I'll speak!" Wang Lin pulled back his right hand, threw Du Jian to the side, and coldly looked at him. Du Jian trembled slightly as his origin soul gradually returned to his body. His eyes contained fear as he said, "I'll tell you everything I know, but you have to promise not to kill me." Wang Lin calmly said, "It's possible to not kill you, as I have other uses for you." Du Jian took a deep breath as he looked at Wang Lin with a complex expression and said, "Swear on your Dao." Wang Lin frowned as he coldly looked at Du Jian. He slowly raised his right hand and was about to throw him toward the opening of the crack. Du Jian's body trembled and he quickly said, "I saw Master devour Sun Yun." Wang Lin's eyes glowed brightly as he silently stared at Du Jian. "I didn't see it personally, but a mountain goblin saw it. After I entered the Heavenly Fate sect, I cultivated a technique that could absorb spiritual energy from beasts. I was in the back mountains when I found a mountain goblin that was nearing the end of its life. As I was absorbing its spiritual energy, I extracted some of its memories for some reason. There was one scene from its memory from a long time ago, and that was when Master devoured Sun Yun." Wang Lin was startled. Du Jian quickly said, "In the memory, Sun Yun and Master had a huge fight, but in the end, Master used a spell that devoured Sun Yun, then he left. This was his biggest secret. When he saw the memory that day, he was completely shocked, and at the same time, fear appeared in his heart. This was why he respected and feared the All-Seer all this time. This secretly was buried deep inside his heart, and it was the first time he had told anyone." Wang Lin asked, "What was Master's expression like back then?" "This? It looked like there was regret. It should be regret." Du Jian carefully recalled before hesitating as if he was thinking of something. Then he said, "However, there was something strange about Master inside the mountain goblin's memory. I have never seen Master wear grey before." Wang Lin's eyes glowed even brighter as he stared at Du Jian and said, word for word, "Are you sure he was wearing a grey robe?" Du Jian nodded and said, "That's right, it was a grey robe. Grey-robed All-Seer. Interesting." Wang Lin revealed a gloomy smile. He had his divine sense locked onto Du Jian since earlier, and it didn't seem like he was lying. "Master, you sure have a lot of secrets." Wang Lin's eyes became cold. "Too many secrets to make this disciple calm. It looks like I can't stay at planet Qianyun anymore. If I was still there, I probably would have been devoured the moment I found out about Master's secret." Wang Lin took a deep breath. He made up his mind to quickly leave planet Qianyun. "After leaving this demon spirit land, I'll merge with the original body and leave. The water in planet Qianyun is too deep for me." Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he looked around and let out a sigh. "I'm still not sure if I can even leave this place." After Du Jian told Wang Lin his biggest secret, he had been cautiously looking at Wang Lin. He could see Wang Lin's expression changing slightly. He was clearly thinking about what he just said. Du Jian let out a breath of air. What he was most afraid of was that Wang Lin wouldn't believe him. After all, something like that was simply too strange. He looked at the crack and was confused. "Where exactly is this?" Du Jian looked at the opening of the crack, and his eyes revealed a lingering trace of fear. That feeling of his origin soul being sucked out of his body was something he would never forget. He looked at the 7 treasured swords floating in the air. Wang Lin's origin energy surrounded the swords and lightning linked the swords together. This must be Wang Lin's secret cave. This person is ruthless, so I can't stay here, but unfortunately my cultivation isn't enough. If I could reach the ascendant stage. Du Jian was already half a step into the ascendant stage, however, he wasn't willing to take the last step and face the life and death trial. However, under this danger, he clenched his teeth. Although his origin soul was sealed, he was confident he could break free by borrowing the energy from the ascendant breakthrough. Achieving ascendant means a chance of living, but failing means death. Instead of waiting here for my death, let's try this gamble. Du Jian's eyes were filled with determination. This kind of determination was extremely rare for him. However, just as he was preparing himself, Wang Lin's icy gaze fell on him. It was like pouring a jug of cold water down on his head, immediately causing his determination to collapse. Wang Lin waved his right hand and the 7 swords floating in the sky flew into his hand. He put them into his bag of holding. Wang Lin, Du Jian's pupil shrank. Wang Lin calmly said, "I'll give you one chance to reach the ascendant stage. If you are successful, I'll grant you a fortune." Du Jian pondered. He didn't ask what kind of fortune. At this moment, he was clear in his heart that this Wang Lin wouldn't let him go. After a long time, he looked at Wang Lin and said, "A gentleman keeps his word." Wang Lin silently nodded. Du Jian suddenly closed his eyes. Wang Lin's cultivation level was much higher than his and he could easily kill him, so there was no need for troublesome things like this. Although he was still confused, he was at the moment of life and death, so he really didn't have time to think. I'll gamble once. Dujun took a deep breath as he felt his already complete domain and took the last step. A heavenly origin soul gradually came from Dujun's body. This energy became stronger and stronger and easily wiped out Wang Lin's seal on Dujun's origin soul. Wang Lin's eyes were bright as he stared at Dujun and pondered. The reason why he let Dujun reach the Ascendant was to increase the success rate of making him a Celestial Guard. Wang Lin didn't forget the description of the Celestial Guard from the Jade. In fact, from the moment he caught Dujun, he had decided to refine this person into a low-quality Celestial Guard. Even though the success rate was too low, if he succeed, he would produce someone similar to a peak late-stage Ascendant Cultivator with one step into the Yin and Yang stage. This was extremely tempting for Wang Lin. The Jade also introduced some spells that could only be used by Celestial Guards. When used, those spells were extremely astonishing. If this Dujun hadn't provoked him, it would have been fine. Wang Lin would not have seized him to refine him into a Celestial Guard. However, this person revealed his killing intent toward Wang Lin, so there was no way Wang Lin would let him go. If you fail and die on the path of Tao, it can be considered a fitting death for a cultivator. If you succeed, then I'll give you a big fortune. As for whether it is successful or not will all depend on your luck. Dujun's cultivation followed the will of the heavens, unlike Wang Lin, who revolted against the heavens. Time gradually passed and the heavenly origin energy inside his body became stronger and stronger. Soon, his origin soul flew out and began fusing with the heavenly origin energy. Time passed. Over 1 hour had passed, and there was still no abnormality in Dujun's origin soul. This caused Wang Lin's eyes to light up. The fusion of Dujun's origin soul lasted for 3 days. Finally, at the moment when all the heavenly origin energy was about to be fused with Dujun's origin soul, something happened. There was a small tremor that immediately ignited the origin flames. The sudden appearance of the flame looked like it wanted to burn the entire origin soul. Dujun revealed a painful struggle and Wang Lin frowned. Seeing that Dujun's origin soul was about to be burnt to ashes, Wang Lin stepped forth. He stuck his hand directly into Dujun's origin soul. At the moment his right reached in, the origin flame seemed to have found an opening. It rushed into Wang Lin's body through his right hand and charged directly toward his origin soul. In an instant, Wang Lin's origin soul was surrounded by the origin flame. However, not only was his origin soul not burnt, his origin soul actually gave off a very comfortable feeling. As Wang Lin's origin soul moved, a large amount of lightning came from within. The lightning moved within the fire, creating a scene of fire and lightning. At the same time, Wang Lin's origin soul sucked in all the fire and lightning, causing them to disappear. A suction force even appeared in Wang Lin's right hand, and a large amount of origin flame from Dujun's body was sucked into Wang Lin. After Dujun's origin soul was no longer in danger of being burned, Wang Lin immediately withdrew his right hand. He took a few steps back and began to control his origin soul to absorb the origin flame. Dujun's origin soul looked weakened as it slowly completed the final fusion with the small amount of origin energy left. He had lost too much origin energy, so even if he succeed and reached the ascendant stage, he would be forever stuck there. The only way for him to advance would be to have a fortunate encounter to recover that last bit of origin energy. Time flew by and more than 10 days passed. Dujun's origin soul and origin energy completely fused into one. His origin soul gradually integrated back into his body and the aura of an ascendant cultivator suddenly appeared. He opened his eyes, revealing an extremely complex gaze. He knew that he had failed at the moment of reaching the ascendant stage and that it was Wang Lin who had saved him. At this moment, a large amount of thoughts flooded his mind. After a long time, Dujun let out a sigh. Although he had reached the ascendant stage, he was the weakest kind of ascendant cultivator and was powerless against Wang Lin. What kind of fortune were you going to give me? At this moment, Dujun's feelings toward Wang Lin were very complex. There was both hatred and gratitude, but even more there was regret and fear. Wang Lin's tone was calm as he slowly said, refine the body and transform the origin soul through a secret ritual. This will allow you to have the opportunity to reach the late stage of ascendant with half a step into yin and yang stage. Dujian's heart jumped and he bitterly asked, for this ritual to be so heaven-defying, that means the failure rate is extremely high. Forget it. I just want to ask one thing, can I retain my consciousness? Wang Lin's eyes were meaningful as he said, if you are still alive after 1,000 years, I'll grant you freedom. There was an important condition for refining a celestial guard. If there was even the slightest resistance from the person, then the process would immediately fail. Celestial Emperor Qin Lin had many celestial guards. However, all the people he selected to refine were people who were extremely loyal to him. This was what they exchanged for a powerful cultivation, so he never had to worry about this. At this moment, Wang Lin was using the same method the Celestial Emperor used. Dujian clenched his teeth as he looked at Wang Lin and nodded. He knew that his fate was already set. If he resisted or disagreed, he would immediately die. He could only gamble once more that the ritual would be successful and to gamble that he could survive for 1,000 years. He had no choice. If he didn't want to die, this was the only way. Wang Lin no longer wasted time. His hand formed a seal and he began to operate the ritual. In an instant, an imprint filled with celestial spiritual energy appeared. Wang Lin pressed the imprint between Du Jian's eyebrows. Du Jian's body trembled as he closed his eyes and became motionless. Wang Lin's eyes became serious. The process for making a celestial guard was extremely complex. He couldn't make even a single mistake or else it would fail. Even if he didn't make a mistake, the success rate was still not high. However, Wang Lin had no other choice, so he had to risk it. The reason he was so keen on refining a celestial guard was because the celestial guard might know spells that could give him the chance to leave this place. If it fails, I can only use Yao Shishua to try again. Wang Lin spat out a mouthful of origin energy that turned into countless symbols and landed on Dujian. The first step of creating a celestial guard was to refine the body. Refining the body to the point that it couldn't be harmed by normal magical treasures. When Wang Lin saw this step, he thought of the ancient gods. The second step was to transform the origin soul, to open up the origin soul and grind it into pieces. Then he would greatly expand the origin soul at any cost before putting it back into the body. The body would be without an origin soul, but the soul would be in the body. The third step was to refine the body's organs. Wither away all the organs inside the body so they are no longer being nourished by celestial spiritual energy. This isolates the body from the five senses and it will no longer feel pain. The last step is to wipe out their divine sense but maintain their intelligence. This makes the celestial guard have no emotion, but they will still think. They have a powerful body, no emotions, and no sense of pain. They are a puppet that won't frown even if their head is cut off. This is a celestial guard. A human magical treasure that Celestial Emperor Qin Lin made that imitates the ancient gods. The refining continued. Several months later, inside the crack, Wang Lin took a deep breath and sucked in all the origin energy into his body. It was as if he had just devoured a cloud. After the origin energy disappeared, a lean body appeared before Wang Lin. This figure gave off a cold aura that began to spread. This figure was extremely pale, as if there was no blood in his body. That was indeed the case as all the blood had been fused into his bones. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy and he let out a sigh. Failed again. It had been a few months since the first step of body refining had started, and Wang Lin had failed many times. Fortunately, the Jade recorded that during the first time, no matter how much he fails, the person being refined won't disappear. Looking at the puppet before him, Wang Lin frowned. According to the Jade, a variety of materials needed to be added during the refining process. Only after all the materials had fused with the body would the first step be complete. Of the 4 ranks of gold, silver, copper, and iron celestial guard, this is not even an iron rank celestial guard. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and a large amount of low-quality magical treasures flew out. There were treasures that Wang Lin no longer used but seemed very regrettable to just throw away. I don't have any materials, but I have a lot of treasures. I believe that melting these treasures down and fusing them with the puppet will have some effect. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he immediately formed a seal. A flame appeared and surrounded these treasures. The flame burned and several of these magical treasures began to melt. Finally, almost all of the magical treasures melted, forming a black ball. After pondering a bit, Wang Lin's divine sense went into his bag and he searched around. Some more magical treasures immediately flew out and entered the ball. This could be considered a big cleaning for Wang Lin's bag of holding. A lot of treasures had gathered inside Wang Lin's bag of holding in more than 800 years. Many of those he had only used a few times and never used again. After all, as his cultivation level increased, a lot of the treasures lost their usefulness. All of these treasures flew out and were thrown into the ball by Wang Lin. At this moment, a blue rose suddenly appeared in Wang Lin's hand. Looking at the rose, a fiery red figure seemed to have appeared before Wang Lin. He hesitated before putting the rose away and throwing another treasure into the ball instead. This process lasted for several days. The cleanup of his bag of holding caused a large amount of low, medium, and even high-quality magical treasures to be refined into liquid. As a result, the ball of liquid before him became colorful and bright. Wang Lin's right hand grabbed the ball and threw it at the puppet. Another round of refining began. Time passed by in the blink of an eye and 2 months passed. On this day the puppet gave off a yellow light that lit up the inside of the crack. Wang Lin opened his eyes and revealed a trace of fatigue. He looked at the yellow light from the puppet and revealed a hint of disappointment. Strength of copper rank. Forget it, it should be barely usable. Although the first step of the Celestial Guard was complete, if the second step of grinding the Origin Soul fails, then everything immediately fails. After it fails, this body can't be possessed, so he won't be able to try to refine another Origin Soul. Wang Lin took a deep breath and revealed a rare look of hesitation. He looked outside the crack. During the past 6 months, the suction outside never stopped, and it looked like it was getting stronger. Wang Lin clenched his teeth. He slapped his bag of holding and the soul flag flew out. A giant skull immediately appeared on the flag. This skull was illusory and was floating inside the flag. It was greenish-black and had no hair as if it was the devil. Its eyes that looked unreal but also real, giving off a cold gaze. He was inside the soul flag staring at Wang Lin and letting out low growls. Most of the soul fragments inside the soul flag stayed away from this skull as if they didn't want to get close. This allowed the skull to have its own territory inside the soul flag. Only the Chilean was different. After devouring a lot of the celestial feed, it went through a series of changes. When it saw the skull roar, it suddenly began to roar as well. The Scully suddenly looked at the Chilean. Both stared at each other without flinching as they roared at each other with malicious intent. This skull was the Heavenly Ghost. Wang Lin's eyes were bright as he looked at the Heavenly Ghost. He raised his hand and immediately grabbed the Heavenly Ghost. The Heavenly Ghost was a fierce creature. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Lin captured it while it was weakened, it would not have been easy. The Heavenly Ghost let out a roar in Wang Lin's hand. It opened its mouth and wanted to devour Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes became cold and he let out a cold snort as he activated the imprint inside the Heavenly Ghost. This immediately caused the Heavenly Ghost to almost dissipate. The Heavenly Ghost had to retreat as it stared at Wang Lin and continued to let out low roars. The puppet's body isn't strong enough, so it will be very difficult for the Origin Soul to survive the second step. However, if I to take the ferocity and spirit body from the Heavenly Ghost but still fail, then I'll just not refine a Celestial Guard anymore. Wang Lin was decisive as he pressed the Heavenly Ghost in between the eyebrows of the puppet. Since I'm going refine a treasure, then I want a top-quality treasure. If it is only late-stage ascendant, it won't be worth of all my treasures and this Heavenly Ghost. Wang Lin's eyes became cold and his left hand formed a seal. He touched the spot between his eyebrows and pulled out a strand of lightning. This lightning contained fire and he threw it into the puppet's body. Refine. the heavenly ghost was extremely vicious and was unwilling to be sealed inside the puppet to help Wang Lin refine. It let out roars and was about to charge out when a whip appeared in Wang Lin's right hand and he whipped at the ghost. With a snap, the heavenly ghost let out a miserable scream. It felt very bitter, as that whip was its natural enemy. If it wasn't for the fact that he had already left a deep imprinted on the scatter demon to use as his second origin soul, he would have thrown it into the puppet as well. However, using the scatter demon soul was difficult, so it was less troublesome to use the heavenly ghost. Several months flew by. Under Wang Lin's constant refinement, the heavenly ghost and Dujun's origin soul fused and devoured each other before being grinded into pieces. However, the heavenly ghost was very strong. Even when it was in pieces, the pieces were still connected. This was the critical requirement for the second step. Almost all the failures had occurred at this moment. It wasn't that the origin soul wasn't strong enough, it was that the pain of having one's origin soul torn apart was not something ordinary people could endure. Once the origin soul relaxed, it would die. Even if they didn't relax, most don't reach the state where the origin soul was still connected after being torn to pieces. Only those with powerful minds could withstand this process. This was comparable to those who revolted against the heaven. This was why those cultivators who had found their own Tao had a higher success rate of being refined into celestial guards. Using more than half a year, Wang Lin refined his first celestial puppet. Although the success rate was very low, with the addition of the heavenly ghost, the success of the origin soul refining was no longer relying on luck. Even for Wang Lin, unless he used the scatter demon soul, he wouldn't be able to refine a second celestial guard. Wang Lin revealed a glimmer of excitement. He took deep breath and mentally calmed himself. He looked at the skinny puppet giving off a yellow light before him. He could feel a connection that would let him control it as he wished. Celestial Emperor Qin Lin would naturally not allow any celestial guard to rebel. During the refining process, countless methods to control the puppets were placed. Wang Lin had been refining it with his origin energy for a long time, so his control over the puppet had already reached its peak. Although the heavenly ghost was unruly, it had been sealed during the refining process and fused with the puppet. Wang Lin squeezed out a drop of blood and flicked it at the puppet. The blood landed between the puppet's eyebrows and fused with the puppet. Then the puppet's eyes suddenly opened. This was a pair of empty eyes. Although this was the case, there was a trace of intelligence inside. The stage of yin and yang. Wang Lin's divine sense immediately swept over the puppet. It had an aura similar to Sichu Nan. Although it was not as strong as Sichu Nan, it was not that much weaker. Wang Lin let out a laugh and admired Celestial Emperor Qin Lin greatly. This person was very intelligent to create this method for creating puppets. Although because the Celestial Guard's origin soul had fused with its body, it couldn't use a lot of spells and couldn't match a real yin and yang cultivator. However, there were several spells prepared specially for Celestial Guards. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. In addition, I have prepared a gift for this Celestial Guard. Wang Lin's right hand touched the spot between his eyebrows and a large amount of grey gas came out. 1,000,000 strands of slaughter energy instantly entered the puppet. The puppet's eyes suddenly gave off the path of slaughter. After flashing a few times, it was gradually hidden, but its eyes became even more fierce. After doing all of this, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and the jade flew out. He pressed the jade between the puppet's eyebrows. There was a burst of light and countless symbols seemed to flash across the Celestial Guard's eyes. After a long time, the jade fell and returned back to Wang Lin. Wang Lin calmly said, "Conceal." The Celestial Guard's body flickered, then it suddenly turned into nothing and moved behind Wang Lin. There was no light, so naturally there was no shadow as well. However, Wang Lin knew that the Celestial Guard was hiding in his shadow. There is a 60% chance of leaving here with the Celestial Guard's abilities. Although this place is a dangerous spot, because it is a dangerous spot, it is also safe. Wang Lin began to ponder. Shortly after, he slapped his bag of holding and a large sword flew out. This sword was as big as a door sign. "Wealth, my first sword. What secrets do you have?" Wang Lin slowly rubbed the sword. He calmed his heart and his mind slowly entered it. This video will end here.